Thank you, sir. Let me quickly paraphrase. Now we are starting CSS, a new chapter in our journey to full stack developer. Now we have discussed many things in the past. We have discussed how to integrate CSS into HTML, and we have also discussed the CSS syntax, and also we have discussed the box model. So the box model, just for recording sake, describes the relationship between an element, in this case H1, and its content. This is the content. And another element, in this case the P element. Now, every element exists in a rectangular box. P element also is an element, therefore it also exists in a rectangular box, as you can see. Now, what box model explains to us is that margin, space out, give space between two elements. As we can see from here, this margin, it gives the space between this H1 element and this P element. And also padding, which gives space between the border of that element and its content. Similarly, the border, which also, if you increase the border and also the padding, it will apparently increase the width of that element. And I try to discuss what margin collapse is. Margin collapse occurs when two elements have a margin set as their property. For example, if I set for this H1 element the margin bottom of 100 pixels, and you know that this is the bottom margin for this element, and this is also is the margin top for this element, P element. If I set 100 pixels for this H1 and I set margin top 40 pixels for this element, normally we should expect that there should be about 140 pixels in total existing in between these elements. But due to margin collapse, the browser tends to resolve the space in between two elements to the highest value of that element, if my memory does not fail me. So which simply means that setting margin bottom for this and margin top for this, the browser will pick this value and give it that space. Therefore, collapsing this, not ignoring this 40 pixel, I gave the P element as margin top. If you go back to the code, now I said I gave this H1 and P element a margin of 200 from the code right here, margin bottom 200, because H1 is on top of P element. Now let's say I want to give. Now before I do this, I want you to note. I want to note the position of this. Now normally, if I give this a margin top of say 100 pixels, for example, normally you will think that the total space in between them should be 300. Well, let's see what it gives us. You can see that there's no change. Even let me refresh it. You see no change at all. However, if I increase this to 400, let's see what will happen. You can see it has increased. Now the space in between this H1 and this P element is 400 pixels, not 600. And it is due to margin collapse. Is there any question on what I just explained? No question. Okay. Now, I also ask a question. Now, what is CSS syntax? Now, I want to ask Joshua one more time. Joshua, can you tell me what CSS syntax is? Joshua, can you tell me what CSS syntax is? Okay, I want to assume you do not know. Now, I want to ask David. No, not David. I want to ask Sister Larry, what is CSS syntax?
Sorry, what is a syntax?
Okay, you don't know what a syntax is?
So is that's the question, right?
Yes, what is CSS syntax? Not just syntax, CSS syntax.
Yeah, it's the one that has like the selectors and declarations, like what you want the HTML thing to do.
Okay, thank you. So the CSS syntax is there must be a selector, then your curly braces, then declaration. Declaration. And you can have multiple declaration separated by a semicolon. So I can have another declaration here. And this declaration consists of two things: the properties are separated by a column and its value. So in other words, this declaration is a combination of property and its value. Okay, having done that little revision, so let's go into CSS. Now, CSS is very, very, very important because that is what we use to style our document. And today, we are going to discuss about selectors. Selectors. Selector helps in you targeting a particular element you desire to give a particular styling. Your inability to select will make it difficult for you to style your page or your document. So you need to understand this concept. Yes, we have been using selectors in the past, but I want to go more into detail today. Now, we know the simple selector of elements.
Hold on.
Let me close this. Let me close this. Okay. Now, if I run this, let's see what we have in there. Now, this is what we have, right? Just a simple HTML, which consists of what? An header, right? For each block, I have header, then a div, header, a div, and header, then also a div. And it's simply describing the state of maybe describing a particular location, right? So now let us try to learn selectors by styling this document. And I have done something like on it before, but let me just quickly copy it so that we can get a picture of what we are trying to achieve. Let me just paste the style in here. Now, this is what please mute yourself. Mute yourself. Mute yourself, please. Okay, so let me just take a snapshot of this and put it somewhere. This is not the best styling anyway. It's just for us to learn CSS, that's all. So let me just put that somewhere, and I'm going to remove that styling out again so that we will start all over again. Okay, so we are back. Okay, let me remove this yellow. Am I saying? Okay, it must be inside. Yes, this one. Let me just remove this. Okay. Now, the very first on the list is the group selector. The group selector. We know that if we want to select an element, we can simply say H2, for example. And if you look at, excuse me, please. If you look at this sample here, you can see that the title is targeted and it's blue in color and white. The text is white. Now, if I come here and select H2, this H2 is a selector, yes, and this selector is targeting this H2. And remember, because we have more than one H2 in the document, this is one H2, this is another H2, and this is another H2. Whatever style given to this H2 will be applicable to all. So now if I Let me see whether this is the background color. I'm not too sure. Let me just see. If I give that a background color of that value, now you can see that all the H2, this one, which is the very first one here, look at this H2 here, location is tied. Look at this one, London is tied. Look at this one too, is tied. But that is not what I want. All I want is this H2 to be tied. Hold on. I think I'm going far. I'm going to child selector. Okay, before we get there, let's say I want to style this. Let me go back to that. I have this div, and I have this div, and I have this div, for example, right? So let's say I want to style that div with a background color. Let's say, let me remove this one first. I can write the class. Remember, I have, where is the code again? I have this class, div A here. This is div A. I have this class, div B. I have this class, div C. So now if I go back to my style sheet, div A, I can easily give it a background, for example, of this value. Or let me just, yes, this value. Let's just, for example, use that value. If I go back to the browser, now I have that already styled as such. But my aim is to style this div also and this div also. Now I can easily do the same thing, dot div B, put my style there, dot div C, and also put my styling there. And I will have the styling achieved. But if you look at what I just did, you can see I repeated myself. I repeated myself, which is not good in programming. There is a slogan called DRY. Don't repeat yourself. Don't repeat yourself. Now, for me not to repeat myself, I will use this type of selector, the group selector. I will use this group selector. Then I can go back to my code. Instead of writing this background color in 3 places, I can easily group my divs together. And once that is done, I can delete this other two styling I have there. Once I go back, you will see that my styling is maintained. Please note that you have a comma separator between those selectors. This is a selector, this is a selector, this is also a selector. And everything together combines into a single selector, right? So any question on group selector? Is there any question on group selector? No question, right? Okay, that's fine. Let's move on to child selector. What is a child selector? Remember that in HTML, you can have parent-child relationship. For example, if I go back to the HTML here, looking at this body tag, I can say that this body tag is parent to H2, this div, this H2, this div element, this H2 element, and this div element. Now, if I'm looking at this div element, right? This div element with class div A is parent to this element, and this other element here. So that means that H2, article, and footer, they are children to this div element. And if these three are children, that makes these three siblings. In real world scenario, we say they are brothers and sisters. And if this H2, for example, is a child to this div, then that simply means that this H2 is grandchild to body. So what is this child element doing? You are trying to target the children to this parent. This is a child, it can be a child or children, and this must be a parent. For example, let's say I want to style this H2 here. Just this one, and this one. Remember, I don't want to touch this H2. This one too is H2. If I try to do just H2 elements, no, the other time we saw the effect of that. I give it this color background. For example, if you view the browser, you will see that this H2 is targeted. All the H2 on the page is what's targeted. But that is not my goal. My goal is just to target the city, which is London, Oslo, and Rome. Now, for me to achieve that, I will need to go back to my code, right? Look at the HTML structure, and I can see that this H2 is not a child to this div. Therefore, I can use that parent-child relationship to style this H2. If you go back to the code, so I can say, okay, the div is the parent and the H2 is the children. If I go back to my code, you can see that only the cities are what? Styled. Is there any question in what I just explained? Is there any question? Joshua, do you have question?
Can you go back to your code again?
Okay. This is the code. Is it HTML or the style sheet you want?
HTML.
So what's the question? Do you have any question?
Oh, you said that you want to start the H2, but then I think
I want to start this H2. The H2 that is housing the cities. This one, and that one. So is there any question?
no.
No question. Okay. So now, that is what child selector is doing. Now, what about descendant selector? Descendant selector is similar to child, but is different. Let me go to the board. Now, if I have, let's say, a div, for example, and here I have H2 and I have another div here. So, and inside this div, maybe I have an H2 here. And I have a paragraph here. I want to ask a question. Now, to this, okay, let me differentiate this one with a class A. And I want this one to be class B, just to differentiate. Now, my question is this. What is stroke R the child stroke children of div with class A? That is my question. So I want where is Ademola? It's not here today. Okay. I want Israel. Talk to me. What is or are the child or children of this class A? This div is class A.
Class A div, the children is H2.
You said H2.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that all? If I call somebody else?
Yes, H2 tag alone.
Okay, H2 tag. Emmanuel.
So,
Answer the question.
for the elements like listed here.
What is
Ba-
it's on the board?
Based on the way it is written, like everything in between the first div and this first
No,
div
just
to-
tell me the elements.
oh H2 deal with the class B, H and the paragraph.
If I get right, you said what? H2. That place is noisy. H2, which other one?
The div with the class of B,
Div class B.
yes, and the paragraph, including the second H2 as well.
H2 again.
Yes, then the paragraph.
Then the paragraph.
Yeah.
Okay. Mary. Mary, answer the question. Mary is not available. David. No, not David. Favor.
Sir,
Can you answer the question?
okay. It has two children, the first H2 tag and the class B div. Did you hear me, sir?
I've written it down already. I heard you. Is that all?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want is Mary back now?
Yes, sir.
So can you tell me the answer, your own answer to this question?
H2 and the class B.
Okay, just like what Favor said. Okay, so Favor Mary. Okay. Sister Larry.
Apologies, this one is beyond me right now. So
Okay. All right.
thank you.
Now I want Joshua, so give it a try.
I think H2 HP as well. And class B, the div class B.
You said what? The second one, can you repeat the second one, please?
The paragraph tag and the div class B.
You said H2 and which other one?
The paragraph and the
Okay, the paragraph. Okay.
yeah, and div class B.
Okay, this one.
Yeah.
Okay, class B. Okay, class B. Okay. One more person. David.
Yeah, I think I go with what Favor.
Okay, with what Favor and Mary said.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I will say this is correct. The reason is very simple. I said children, child or children. This is a class A, this one here. This one is a class A. And the direct children of this div of class A, they are this H2 and this div. This H2 and P, they are grandchildren. to this. Grandchildren. But the children are just H2 and this div with class B. But when we are talking about descendants, you know what descendant mean in simple English, right? Descendant is the family tree, everything.
Mm.
So that simply means that the descendants of this class A, they are this H2, this div with class B, this H2, and this P tag. These are descendants. But the children are just this and this. That key difference is very important for all of you to note. Because that separates this selector from this selector. If we go back to the code, let's say, for example, I want to style all the descendants of this class div A. And like I said, this H2 is a descendant of this, of div A. This one too is a descendant of div A. And everything inside it is a descendant of div A.
So we're only seeing a whiteboard, sir.
Oh, you are seeing the whiteboard?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, thank you. Can you see my code now?
Yes.
Good.
Uh,
Can you see my code now?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to stop at the descendant today because of our time. So now, if I say I want to change the font color of this of everything within this div A, I can easily come here and say dot div A space okay, let me try this. I've not tried before, but let me try this. This asterisk means everything. Let me just try it, whether it will work. I've tried before with child selector, but I don't think I've tried with descendant. So let's see. Color. Let's give it a color that's very obvious. Red. Let's go to the code, to the browser. Now you can see everything is red because it is descendant. If you go to the code here, right here, you can see this everything inside this div A, they are all descendants. Let's try something. Let us try something. Let me see. Okay, whether this P will be turn to red if I change it to child, because after all, this article is a child of this div A. So let's see. You know, I can tell. Children selector. Let's go back. Okay, and it worked. The simple reason is this. The simple reason is because if you look at this is a child to this div A, and this is a content. Article is a child to this div A, and everything here is a content. Footer is a child to this div A, and this is its content. And that is the reason why everything also is red. Now, there are situations whereby that I'm trying to think of a situation that you will have elements so deep into this div, and it will not be affected. When I think of that example, I will bring it to the class. So now I want you to focus on some things here. For us to have a group selector you can see that the separator there is a comma. And for us to have a child selector, the separator there is a greater than sign. And for us to have descendants, the separator there is just space. It's just space. So I'm going to stop here for today. We continue the rest in our next class. So we have discussed group, child, and descendant. Is there anyone with question?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to stop the recording now.